A while ago I made a video about the Elder Scrolls series becoming dumbed down. In it my basic premise was that games were getting less like games I like to play and more like the games that people not like me like to play. Because it's easier to make more money that way. But a lot of people latched onto the casual gamers are evil subliminal message I had masterfully woven into the video, and had a lot to say about the subject, the varying notions of what a casual is or looked like. Some thought that I'd been blaming casual gamers directly, and it got me thinking, what is a casual gamer? Are you a casual gamer if you play games meant to be played casually, or if you simply casually play games in general? Or does it mean you play games but only if they're easy or on easy mode? Maybe it means you're a latecomer to a particular game series, or maybe you're a 12-year-old boy with an annoying little voice. Maybe all of the above. If we look at the context in which the term casual gamer is often used, it is usually said as some kind of insult, a lot like noob is used as a derogatory term. In my own personal usage, I use the term to denote a player with a low tolerance for learning a game's mechanics, easily bored, expects rewards and acclamation and feelings of power, or a player with a low amount of time to spend playing machine games. As I've said before, there's nothing wrong with this. My problem lies with taking a series and changing it to cater to the people with the aforementioned qualities and expectations. I feel the term is generally used to describe players that lack understanding of a game or are somehow less good at the game. A lot of comments and or objections I've received about the phrase casual gamers has come down to how that individual perceives that phrase, which led me to realise that one person's casual is not the same as the next person's, which led me to the question, does the phrase have a place in our gaming vocabulary at all? And if so, what kind of place? For me, the short answer is yes. It has a place, but why and what kind of place it should have, that's what I seek to establish in the rest of this video. In order to understand where I'm coming from, it would be useful to consider the historical context of the emergence of computer games. In the 1970s and 1980s, computer games were generally played by those with access to arcade machines or fortunate enough to have access to a computer. Arcade games were notoriously difficult, and this was by design. Arcade machines were about making money on a per-play basis, and so the more often you died in a game, the more often you needed to put money into the machine. The draw of the machine themselves was that they were the only way a lot of people could play computer games, and at the time they were an almost luxury experience. Arcade games were difficult to play because they actively sought to kill you. The other sphere of early games were games for computers, which had a different audience generally and a different purpose for existence. These factors led to very different games being made. Games made for the experience where the player had freedom to engage with the game without the constant pressure of dying, and developers were not motivated by money to kill players off arbitrarily. This led to the establishment of a design precedent for the two root classes of machine games, a precedent that didn't start to break down until the late 90s, early 2000s. Arcade machines were the precursor home console machine, and computers eventually became everyday household items. The difference between the two being that arcade and consoles were designed for playing games on, and home computers weren't. Of course, that didn't preclude home computers from being used for playing games. It is important to note, however, that arcade games were made difficult for different reasons to why games for the PC were made difficult. And broadly speaking, the home arcade was about reflexes and the PC about problem solving and or strategy. This is only broadly speaking, as there have been many exceptions, but the point I'm trying to establish is that there was an expectation for games to pose a challenge. What do the origins of PC and console games have to do with the concept of casual gamers? Very little. Which is precisely my point. Games of the past were not conducive to the casual gameplay. Certain design factors and technological limitations meant that to get a meaningful experience from machine games, you had to invest a lot of time and therefore couldn't be played casually. At this time, casual gameplay was either impractical or not possible, and so casual gamers not only didn't exist, but couldn't exist at this time. It wasn't until console machines became much cheaper to make and more readily accepted in households, and the capacity to save progress was realised, that people could play games on a more casual basis. The topic of console versus PC games and gaming is a subject for another video, and I'll highlight the reason why I make a distinction between the two platforms. But I want to be clear, I'm not arguing PC is intrinsically better than console, or that console is equal to casual gamers, only that mass adoption adoption of consoles led to a mass market for games. To me, however, this wasn't the time that truly give birth to the casual gamer in the present day sense. That would take the mass adoption of mobile phones and the internet. Today, games are freely available and have become an accepted part of popular mainstream culture, rather than a thing that was only for kids, nerds, and social recluses. Which brings me to the double-edged sword that is mass casual game playing. The colossal exposure gaming has as a whole has meant that it is now not weird in the slightest for anyone to play a machine game, and consequently exposes games of all genre to an enormous audience that would have previously shunned it due to a perceived social stigma associated with computer games. However, this colossal exposure has led to the stratification of game development strategies. A lot of money can be made by targeting mass market and excluding the original base. In fact, talented companies of yesteryear have been bought up by cynical behemoths and had their intellectual property exploited. Actually, let's not get into that now. I did make a whole video about these kinds of practices and I've made my feelings very clear on this subject. Casual gamers are not bad. Playing games casually is not bad. My point is that it is disappointing and frustrating when developers take a game series or even a genre and change it to cater to the tastes of the largest demographic, or at least so that it will induce the highest number of people to part with their money, which means lower quality experiences for those that expect more of what they used to get. This lays the responsibility for casualization not on the casual gamer, but on the developer, and to a different degree, the gaming community as a whole. So, why does casual gamer have a place in our vocabulary? Well, simply, we need a phrase to describe people that play games to only pass a little time here and there, or just like playing simple games. More importantly though, why do casual gamers have a place in our gaming community? Despite the fact that I really doubt a casual gamer would self-identify as a gamer, we shouldn't be snobbish and excluding. To me, casual gaming is the first easy step into the much broader and more exciting world of games. A lot of people will stay there on that first step, and that's fine. But it creates a wide open door for many people that have more demanding tastes. For gaming to remain a big part of mainstream popular culture, casual gaming needs to exist. However, this places a responsibility at the feet of us, who expect more from games, to push back against developers that seek to casualize, to educate and introduce our friends and family to richer gaming experiences. Casuals kinda need them.